All right, we are live, everybody. Happy Friday. Today is December 5th, and you're hanging out with my community manager, the community built by, for, and managed by community managers. As always, you can chat along with us over on Twitter. We have a chat at hashtag CMGR Hangout, where I know a bunch of you are watching right now. And if you love what you're seeing today and have any ideas or want to participate in any way, please go to our website at www.mycmgr.com, where you can click on participate, and then fill out that form. That gets back to Sherry and I, and we'll get you on the show or get your company on the show or your ideas or whatever. This is really everyone's community, and it's up to you guys to help keep things interesting and going. So, all right, what do we have for this week? Well, whenever communities overlap, there's an opportunity for something called coopetition. What's coopetition, might you ask? Well, think of it this way. It's sort of like competition and cooperation mashed up together, right? So even though we might have overlapping interests, or members of our communities might overlap, there's always this higher value created when you figure out how to work together kind of for the greater good. So with that, shout out to Sarah Nagel over on Twitter, who's helping us with our chat from Sprouts, so thank you. And with that, I'll just let everyone introduce themselves, starting with Tia.
Hey guys, I'm Tia. I'm the social strategist at Unbounce. I've been here for just over a year, so I was doing a lot of the social stuff all on my own until I brought Haley, our community manager, who you'll meet on just at the beginning of October.
Hey everybody, I'm Sherry Rohde. I lead community and user experience at Rebellion Media, as well as co-produce CMGR Hangout here with Brew.
Hi everyone, I'm Guido Jansen. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm the Dutch community manager for Magento offline community, organize events and manage the website.
Hi everyone, I'm Haley. I'm the community manager at Unbounce. I work with Tia. And previous to that, I was working as a community and content manager at a content marketing software called Uberflip, and I just started at Unbounce in October, so I'm new to that.
I'm Brian Fanzo, iSocialFans on Twitter, Chief Digital Strategist at BroadSuite, community manager and social business advocate across the board, and big fan of CMGR Hangout.
And my name is Brew, the director of Awesome with Be The Change Revolutions, and also co-producer here with Sherry for my CMGR. Glad to be here, guys. So let's just start things off. Anybody jump in? I know I defined it a little bit in the beginning in the intro, but like for you, what is coopetition?
I think it's really just finding someone who kind of aligns with the same values of your company or has the same business goals, and who you can work together with to reach a bigger audience than you would just on your own.
Yeah, I like to say that the power of we is always greater than the power of me. So collaboration and innovation is only will only happen, and you're only able to really grow your community if you're able to reach outside of the people that you can currently reach today. So working alongside people that maybe share a philosophy, or I don't ever believe a competitor competes with you in every aspect of your business. So working together to achieve and innovate faster, I think, is the only way we'll kind of grow as we become more virtual and less limited by, or less limitations of boundaries and physical limitations.
Yeah, just to add to that, I guess just working with companies or brands that have the same audience, but you're not in direct competition with them. I mean, if you have similar products or services in the same audience or the same user base, but you're not, your products can sort of supplement each other instead of really competing with each other, then you can only support each other and help each other get more awareness and probably help your own audience more.
What we do here in the Netherlands is that we try to get companies commercially that are commercial implementing Magento, which is an e-commerce platform. We try to get them to work together to work on stuff that everyone is doing, trying to reach users, organize events. It doesn't make sense for everyone to organize a big yearly event for, say, 500 users. But if we can work together, that does make sense. So that's what we're trying to do here.
You know, it's interesting because I really, this is the first time I thought about coopetition in terms of community. First time, you know, I've really used that word is in the agency environment, where often you might have multiple agencies working for one client, right? And at the end of the day, you have a lot of overlapping services. Now, some services you're contracting specifically for, but a lot of times there's these gray areas. But at the end of the day, you're all there to work together to service the client's best needs, right? And so I really thought about coopetition in kind of the community lens is at the end of the day, you're there to serve the community. And if you have this like Venn diagram where in the middle you have that overlap, it doesn't matter. You're still there to serve the community. How awesome when you can have somebody to work with to do that. So.
Yeah, I mean, I believe like when you think of thought leadership or influencers in your community or for your brand, the ones that are great are the ones that can reach outside and not just be stuck in that one frame of mind. And you know, like I was at an event in New York City recently, and they brought a whole group of 40 of us in there, and I was laughing because at one table was 20 leaders of digital agencies, and they all compete every day against each other for business, but they were there working together for this, you know, influencer event to drive, you know, new way of work or whatever the topic was. And to me that was powerful because we were able to bring all these unique insight voices and separate the fact that, you know, the day before you're fighting over an RFP and you're really focused only on what you can do for the community, not what you can do for your bottom line. I think that's where we can make a lot of change.
Yeah, it's also a great way of just establishing trust with your community. I mean, which is so important in social media community management and really anything where you have customers, I guess, because you're not just constantly promoting yourself, you're promoting other people while promoting yourself at the same time and just showing your community that there are other great products out there or that you're really looking to create value for them and not just kind of, you know, hammer down your message all the time.
So, what are some examples, guys, that you've seen of successful coopetition? I know, Brian, you kind of gave that example recently of that event. You know, what else do you guys have from a story side?
For actually what kind of gave me the idea when I emailed Sherry originally was just because a lot of the success that we have comes from this type of, we really call them partnerships at the end of the day. But we've done quite a few very successful campaigns that revolve around this kind of stuff. So with HubSpot, because they're reaching a really large audience of content and inbound marketers, those are exactly the kind of people that we want using Unbounce and kind of reading our content, people that we can help educate as well. So what we've done in the past is we've done ebook swaps. So content that they make that we think is really great for our community, we'll share, and then along the other flip side, they'll take something that we've created specifically for their community or just that we think can be repurposed and distributed to the people who are reading their blog. We've done the same thing with PPC Hero, and if you guys are familiar with Conversion Excel, they are actually like one of the really top conversion marketing blogs. So in a way, we compete for traffic to our blog. But because we have the same kind of people that we want to reach and we have the same goals in mind to educate people about conversion marketing, we partnered up with them to do this series called Page Fights. So that was something pretty cool that we did.
Yeah, and actually, when I was working at Uberflip before, we had kind of, on a smaller scale, a good partnership going with Unbounce, where Unbounce recently had their first CTA conference in September, and there was a giveaway that Uberflip was a part of where we sponsored a ticket, giveaway ticket, with a few other companies, but we have similar audiences, and so we were part of this giveaway, and people who wanted to go to CTA conference would tweet. It was sort of like a social media initiative. And so we wrote a post about it on Uberflip, and we were promoting the conference for Unbounce more aggressively than we would have otherwise. And then on the flip side, we got exposure at Uberflip to Unbounce's audience. We had people who wanted to go to the conference tweeting at us, and it was this really collaborative effort. So that paid off big time for us, and it wasn't even too much effort put into that. So the ROI on that, from a community perspective, was great, and an awareness perspective.
Yeah, I think like the chat like this, or even I'll plug No Kid Hungry campaign on Giving Tuesday. The fact that the team that was supporting that reached out to everyone, no matter your background, and everybody came together for one cause, and we all really were focused on a community and one driven aspect. I think that's a great example of, and I think like the great Twitter chats that are out there. I'm a Twitter chat fan. There's no I'm not admitting that, but I think the great Twitter chats are ones where some of the people that are competing day to day. Like I love to see well, I'll give the shout out to Sarah from Sprout, where she's engaging in a buffer chat or in a chat that might be considered a competitor, but they're the same audience, and they want to provide value and show that they're listening. And I think when you do that, I have much more trust in a brand when you can trust your employees to engage within the other, your competitors' community, because when it comes down to it, the services you provide, how you relate, you're going to stand out from the noise anyhow. And if you can do that in some of these chats and some of these events by allowing your leaders to participate, cross-function or cross-department-wise, I think it's important.
I think another great example of Coopetition is what's coming up in January with CMAD, with Community Manager Appreciation Day. Here, we have not only other communities of community managers, but products and services, and really, the entire gamut of all competitors, all aligning for one day to celebrate community managers. And kind of aligning just for one purpose, right? And so I think I'm excited to see how all of that goes this year, because it's been the largest group of competitors, if you will, all working together in one day that I've seen so far. So.
Yeah, it was really fun last year to watch like Meshfire and Sprout Social and Hootsuite all work together to vote on awards and everything like that. And that was pretty cool.
And the cool thing is that even though you're all competing against each other, you always see people supporting other nominees, even though you're directly competing against them. I saw lots of people actually be like, "Oh, go vote for them," even though I want to win too.
Yeah, exactly.
We actually, I asked my marketing manager, Corey, if he had any examples the other day, and he used to work on, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Eat Street. It's a Canadian thing. It was an app for food carts, or food trucks, essentially. So you open the app, you see where the closest food truck is in your area. And when they first started developing it, they didn't really have their own community yet because they were a new brand. So they really relied on all of the different food truck vendors individually to build that community for them. And obviously, each of those food trucks is competing with one another, but because they kind of wanted to lift the food truck industry as a whole, they all started working together to really push this one app to kind of bring it all together and build exposure for everybody.
Awesome. Well, I just want to remind everybody who's watching and also hanging out with us over on Twitter at #CMGRHangout. Please feel free to tweet in any questions for specifically anyone on the panel or for all of us to answer. We love bringing your questions into the show. So let's move on to our third question here, which is, why is Coopetition important for communities?
I think it's definitely goes back to what Brian said, where you are wanting to always provide the most value for your community that's possible. So at a certain point, you kind of run out of things that you can talk about, either about yourself or your own company and brand and products. So being able to reach outside into other industries or similar products really kind of gives you more to pull into your community to educate them.
And like you said, Tia, at the begin with, I mean, if you want to show that you are listening and build trust, I mean, nobody wants to listen or follow or believes a brand knows everything. So if your brand only shares your own stuff, you only care about your own people, then why would I mean, like, why would I think you care about me as a customer? So I think part of that is like to build that trust, you have to show a little bit of vulnerability. You have to show a little bit of the fact that you are paying attention to others and give credit where credit's due. Like I think the great brands, you know, and this goes into like, you know, some of the tech world is those ones where they say, hey, I don't have the best laptop. I have the best software that goes in the laptop, and I'm going to give a shout out to all these laptops because together we make a good team, and without a laptop, my software is useless. And I think that's part of this whole idea of building trust across the board.
I completely agree with that. I think it almost humanizes your brand a little more by saying almost as a friend, like, hey, this is a great product too, or look at this great ebook, or here's some great content that I think would be really valuable to you. And you know, speaking to your community like they're humans, which they are, and you're a human speaking to them, and not just being, you know, this kind of faceless brand that just wants to talk about what it's doing. I think, yeah, it all comes back to just kind of the relationship building and the trust and kind of being a friend to your community.
Yeah, and it's needed. For instance, in the open source community, it doesn't make sense for a single company to make a Linux or many of the other open source products that we have, and it's much more efficient to work together on that and make it a worldwide project even. And I think even this chat is some form of competition, right?
I think it is. I think that's part of the reason why I think I love it. I talk about it being my favorite thing on Fridays because, you know, the people that are brought in, that, you know, Sherry and Brew do an awesome job of bringing in unique thought leaders from all different backgrounds, and you know, part of that is that all these people are just willing to come on here and share and give. No one plugs their company or plugs their own products the entire time, and if they do, they probably don't come back because it's such like a community about giving. And I think that's part of the thing is that if you're, you know, if I have jab, 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 right hook behind me, but I firmly believe that these brands and these companies that give more than they try to take are the ones that are going to stand out and make a difference. And like this, if you're willing to jump on here and collaborate with people that might be competing with you outside, it shows that you're willing to help the community first, not just think about your brand only.
Yeah, exactly. Add value first. Yeah.
Well, I think you know, you boil it down to relationships 101 or networking 101. You know, one of the first things you're taught when learning how to be a successful networker is you just really want to add value to everyone you meet, right? So it's give first, give often, add value, and then connect people within your communities. And really, coopetition, I think, is just that. And that's why it's so powerful. That's why it's so important. Because when you are able to provide more than just you personally have to offer to a community, you know, they're going to see great value in you. And so it's not 100% just pushing what my community's for or just pushing what my brand is. When I can get involved in different parts of your life, it's how we strengthen relationships. You know, we all have that go-to guy. Like it's interesting, right? Because I think a lot of us might know that person where you're like, man, I could really use a plumber. Well, I don't know a plumber, but boy, I should ask Bill because Bill seems to always have an answer for like great people that he's connected to. So I'm gonna say, hey, Bill, who do you know who's a plumber, right? And as and as community managers, that's sort of our role, right? We want to be the person to go to, even when it doesn't necessarily 100% involve our brand or our community.
That kind of reminds me of something like when I can tell the difference between a really good retail. It usually happens the most. I can take an example from like my mom's company. She does nails. She has a beauty salon. But one thing they do is when someone comes in and they try to get an appointment or walk in or whatever, and they can't get in, she will always refer her to someone who she really truly believes in and trusts. And we do the same thing. We like anywhere you work, if you have a good company, if you know your product is not right for someone, you're not going to try and sell it to them. You'll refer them to someone you know can do the job well. And I think that's kind of like the sign of a good company, where you won't just say, no, we can't help you, sorry, but you won't take the time to refer them to someone who can really help them out.
And I also think this idea of competition is reality, right? Is that people belong to different communities. It's not like you just log into the internet and only have one tunnel. We belong to a ton of different communities, and so I think it just naturally happens.
Well, especially from the standpoint of trying to get people to work together for one mission. Like I will read a piece of content. Like I know LinkedIn just did one where they combined with HubSpot. If it's a LinkedIn HubSpot ebook, I'm going to read that a lot more than if it's a LinkedIn ebook. Or if it's just a HubSpot ebook, because to me it's like, hey, you just brought two thought leaders. I respect both companies, but now that I know that you're working together to provide me unique value or maybe more holistic value, it just adds more to it, and it also gives me more validation that hey, Jason Miller, you're pretty awesome at your job, and you're willing to admit that you want to collaborate with somebody else. That just higher you put you higher in your pedestal than someone that's like, hey, it's me. Only me. I'm too good to to work with anyone else.
And doing competition. It also means that early on in your stage of company, you can specialize because you can let other companies do other stuff. You can cooperate with them without you needing to do everything, and it's a bit scary probably at first because you have to admit you're not as good in everything, but there are other companies that can help you with the other parts of a project or whatever you're working on.
Yeah, and I was going to say that people aren't stupid. They know that there are other options out there. They know how to find them if they want to. And so if you try and hoard a community for yourself, then it's not going to do them any favors. It's not going to do you any favors or your business. So if you don't have everything to offer a community, then yeah, say, you know what, this is really going to help you, or even better, we have this kind of sort of collaborative effort that's really going to cover all the bases that you're looking for.
Well, and here's an interesting thought: is that if you know your community members well, you probably know which community members also belong to possibly other communities or have those expertises, so you can actually just kind of introduce those people together, to kind of solve problems or fill needs.
100%, and it also, that helps you build relationships with other companies too, which can go a long way. Relationship building with your community yourself, and then also other companies in your space will then help promote you, and vice versa. Only good can come of it, really.
Yeah, I think of it in today's day and age. If you're not willing, there's two things. If you're not willing to work with others or empower your employees, there's probably a reason. You're probably not very confident or not really good at what you're doing. And you're hiding something. Because I think that's partly what it, and I hate the idea that everyone says it's millennials, because I think millennial is a mindset, but millennials believe in collaborating and doing whatever we can, finding the best people to get the job done. And that's, if a company's not willing to do that, you probably aren't very good at getting your job done. You want to control the curtain that's in front of you. And I think those companies and those people are going to start to be weeded out. And the companies that are willing to admit their faults or admit they don't do everything well, but they want to work well with other companies and other teams, those are the ones that are going to build up rapport. Because I'm much easier to give forgiveness to a company that's going to say, hey, I'm not the best person to do video production, although I'm a digital agency. Let me forward you to my competitor that does video production better. Well, the next time I need digital marketing, I'm not going to the competitor. I'm going to the one because they were so confident to admit what they don't know. They must be really good at what they do know.
Totally. Actually, that reminds me, again, going back to an example from my previous job, we were in content marketing. It was content marketing software. And we developed these relationships with two other companies, two other startups in the content marketing space, but they did something slightly different. And just through hosting, finding each other sort of on social media, sharing content, building that relationship, and then being aware of each other, we sort of started partnering up on things. The companies were called Scripted and Atomic Reach, and that turned into hosting webinars together, doing blog post exchanges. When we would go to conferences, since we had the same audience, we would go to like Content Marketing Institute or Content Marketing World Conference and a lot of other ones. We would host happy hours together, and then eventually it turned into a discussion about integrating products. So it turned from just helping our audiences with each other's products and each other's content to being like, hey, now our products together can probably help you solve many problems. So it could take time and be sort of a slow burn, but even the smallest, even sharing content can eventually turn into something really valuable for your business and for your community in general.
So just a quick bring in this tweet here from Ryan. Ryan kind of mentioned it reminds him of how Gladwell describes mavens when we were talking about CMGR chat or CMGR hangout. Connecting people, and are we a Maven community? I think that Mavens being the connectors of people, that's probably pretty core to our jobs as community managers, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, part of it's really being like a traffic cop, right? You find the right people to connect the right, it's aligning these people and these things around a shared purpose or passion, and making that, allowing them to do good things. And that's part of it is just aligning great people and making that happen. I think Tim McDonald, who I know most of us know here, are big fan. He's amazing at that, where he just and Ted Rubin, where they just kind of pull people and say, hey, you two people should talk to each other because you'd work well together. And I think that's part of this this idea of, I like to call it competitive collaboration, because really that's what you're doing, is you're allowing people to kind of come together and really aligning forces to do good things.
So like competulation, right?
We love making up words here too.
Yeah, just keep the synergies going. Question from Carmela. Hey, Carmela. Would you say coopetition is the spark that kicks off a community, or does it help an existing community thrive? Any thoughts?
I think it can be both. I don't see why not.
I agree. A lot of times, if you're a new brand starting out, it can help you spark that for sure. Like if you have no one to talk to in the first place, finding those relationships and helping amplify your brand is super important. But if you're kind of at that point where you're pretty successful, but maybe you're looking for new opportunities, it's also just as important.
And I think
to start with, because you need to probably know the person or company, so it's harder to start with, but I think it's definitely possible.
Mm-hmm.
And if your community already understands your voice and story, it's probably a little easier too. It's like it's like content curation. Like you can take other people's great content, add your own little insight, and promote their content, but you're still showing your value, but you're expanding your audience. I think that's part of it, where if you have a similar product or a similar industry, but you're not as well known, aligning yourself with them can't really hurt you as long as you have an understanding of your voice and story. I think too often people get scared because they don't have a voice or they don't understand what their value proposition is, and that might be because you probably don't have one, and you might be outside your parameter. But if you have a value proposition and understand your voice, you should be confident enough to align yourself with the big players and get spread your voice. That's the greatest way to grow, not only on social, but really between communities, between networks, between people.
Yeah, so let's jump into our fourth question here, which is, how do you identify companies ideal to partner with in cooperation? So as everybody's thinking about this topic, like, wow, yeah, we don't do enough cooperation or coopetition, or like how do you find partners to get together on?
I think to start, you would go with who you follow and who you look to in your own industry. I mean, from just a personal standpoint, to try and learn more about your own community and get better at your own job. It probably aligns with what your community is following you for as well. So the blogs that you read, the people that you follow, people who are in the same space. Again, going back to companies that have the same audience as you and are probably doing something similar to you, but not something in direct competition. Yeah, I mean, I guess start from what you know and then build out from there.
Yeah, look for companies or people with different abilities that want to accomplish the same goal, but they have different abilities to help your clients or whatever goal you want to reach.
And one of my favorites, like I like to think, when you think of live events, I always like to say I attend about 6 live events a week, and I don't ever travel because I follow the hashtag on social listening. And it's the greatest way to find new audiences and people that are live tweeting or tweeting about a certain hashtag, or like even if you didn't go to Inbound, I remember Inbound was one of the ones where that week I had 4 hashtags from 4 different events in the United States going on, and I was able to kind of pick and learn what people were tweeting about, what they were interested in, and then find their common similarities. So I think it comes down to social listening, right? If you were really good, if you link between the people that you want to align yourself with, what they share, who they listen to, you can really broaden your horizons of not only who you should be collaborating with, but who you should be listening to.
Anybody else have any thoughts on that 4th question, or we'll be done with that one? We'll be done with it. All right, so let's just bring in another tweet real quick here. Here we go. This question is from Corey. Corey, thank you for joining us this Friday. Corey asks, have you folks found a good example of companies encouraging significant social audience growth through co-opetition?
I would like to know this too.
Corey, you have stumped the panel.
Well, I guess I could throw one out. Like if you guys follow Kim Garst on Facebook, she does a really great job of her Fridays. She promotes like everybody's Facebook page that exists, like that's in her community that follows her. And I think she does a great job of, even if you're she's very agnostic, where she promotes and shares everyone that is there as like, without ever having it as like a competition element. I think that's a good way of growing. And if you're promoting and saying, hey, follow these other people's pages, even if someone's not following your page, it kind of shows that you're willing to help promote other people. I think that's a good example on like her on Fridays. I think if you look at podcasts are great because they often bring on guests and people from all kinds of unique backgrounds. A couple of the ones that come to mind is like Jay Bear, and they do the Social Pros podcast, and a lot of times they have their direct competitors on that podcast, and that competitor is going to share that podcast to their audience after the show, and now they're in their newsfeed. They're socially getting reach even by having their competitor on their show.
I think Mia Voss does a really good job of what you said Kim
Yes.
does, but on Google Plus as well. Every week she is super diligent about giving a shout out to her back crap crazy crew or whatever she calls them.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, just Brian, you made me think about just the idea of content creation and content, and at the end of the day, if you want the best way to get things syndicated is to find people with huge audiences and invite them to collaborate on whatever piece of content, whether that's video, audio, or a blog post, right? That's why we do guest bloggers. It's to increase our communities. It's to leverage somebody else's audience to syndicate the content. So.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who thinks that people do lists just because they want to promote everybody else on the list is very naive. We all know that the reason they put all these great names with all these great reach and great followers on their list is because they want them to share it and their content is right in that feed. And I think, understanding that, we still appreciate it. And I think part of that comes in the fact that you're willing to promote and share these other people, even if it means they're sharing it to, humble brag about themselves. And I think, I wrote this up in my predictions for 2015 thing, where I believe we're going to focus more on creating community media hubs rather than creating other people's, user-generated content's going to turn into, hey, if this person in my community created a great YouTube video, why don't I promote that across my channel, put it on my blog? I think that's part of the idea where they're going to share my content, I'm promoting them, and we're helping each other. I mean, that's what this CMGR Hangout does. Is if you're not, I recommend anyone who's listening to this and watching, and you have a voice and you want to get your voice heard, reach out and try, set up and be on the panel. I think, part of this is really giving you an opportunity to reach a whole new audience that you might not have been able to reach in your normal social, interactions.
Yeah. Too many. I think the really like the ones who do that kind of stuff well, the cross promotion of people, are the people who are more genuine about it, because you see people do that all the time, but no, people aren't gonna reshare it if they don't believe it. Like, there are people who do the same kind of tactics, but it looks spammy, you know? And you can really tell the difference between someone who really appreciates your commitment and your audience and support, and that's why they share it forward, rather than just tagging for the sake of getting the exposure.
Well, I mean, and look at Giving Tuesday. The Giving Tuesday campaigns that worked were ones that people create relationships with the influencers the entire 364 other days of the year, and then that one day of the year they asked them for the help to promote. The ones that just all of a sudden tweeted out to me on Giving Tuesday and said, share this link. There's zero chance of me sharing that link because you never cared about me the rest of the year. But I think that's an element where if you think about it from like a collaboration, build relationships long before you make that first ask, and it's the same thing before tagging them in the content or tagging them and asking them to share a post, or even, I really am beyond annoyed with the idea that everybody tags everybody in Facebook posts for content they share that has nothing to do with the person that's being tagged in it. I think that's missing the point, and that's a quick way to get unfollowed in today's content sharing element.
Going back to what you were saying before about kind of these communities of content or content communities, I think a great example that I see of that going on right now is with kind of YouTubers / vloggers, where they're kind of helping syndicate each other's content, through this sort of network, if you will, and cross promoting each other's channels and things like that. Really at the end of the day, working together to drive viewership, and I just think that's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think it's important to just always remember to give before you ask. Even if you don't have something specific in mind, build those relationships just out of like a genuine interest of building them. And then, when you do need someone to help promote something or whatever it is, then that person, because they know you, you've had conversations with them on social media or wherever you've been sharing their content or whatever it is, they'll be way more inclined because they'll see you as like maybe an online friend, as opposed to doing the hey, please retweet, or spamming people to please share this, and that never works. People hate that. So just yeah, be genuine, give before you ask, for sure.
And as long as you have been giving, then you can totally spam the shit out of people, and they're okay with it. So
Truth.
It's totally true. So hang on, let me just share this next one here. So this comes from Rediz. Rediz. Hope I'm saying your name right. Yes, from your point of view, could you tell us how going the extra mile or being friendly proactively compares with coopetition? Anybody have a thought?
Well, I don't think your competitor is going to align with you or be willing to collaborate with you unless you've made a name for yourself or you've kind of been in their viewpoint. I think the thing about that the competition collaborating is they have to actually think of you as competition first, right? I think that too often I don't think a brand new social network is going to reach out to LinkedIn and say, hey, let's do a webinar together. But if you've established yourself over a long period of time, I mean, building a relationship, there's no easy button, and there's no way to it's not a short-term gain, it's a long-term piece. So I think building those relationships, doing the giving and asking now, because you really don't know when you're going to need that right hook or that ask. But when you do, and you reach out to collaborate with somebody, and you've already been giving, the chance of them saying yes is so much easier. I mean, I'm starting a new podcast, and it's amazing how all I do is ask people to be a guest, and they say yes. And then I have people come into me and say, how'd you get them as a guest? I said, I asked them. Like it wasn't hard. Like there was no magic. I didn't dangle anything in front. I just asked. And I think that's kind of key.
That's like, it just reminded me of, I don't know why it just reminded me, I forgot about this in the examples earlier, but a really good example of like big names in this coopetition space is, do you guys remember when HubSpot did like the biggest webinar in the world, or they were trying to break their own record, but last year they had people from Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook, like all the big social networks were on it, and obviously that, like, there's there's a reason that they were all on it together, even though they were competitors. You don't want to be the only one left out of that conversation at the end of the day.
Totally. And just to add to what Brian was saying, I mean, once you've established that, also, if you want to ask someone to partner with you on something, try and do as much work for them or as you can. Like if you're going to approach someone with whatever it is, an ebook or something, have links to things, approach them with why this is going to benefit them, have assets created instead of, make it as easy as possible for them to say yes and just kind of hit the ground running with it instead of, kind of hemming and hawing over, hey, can you partner up with me? I don't know. And then they have to do a lot of work for it.
I'm reminded of this kind of phrase, which is everybody wants something, find out what that something is and give it to them. They'll gladly repay you in spades. So, all right, well, let's jump into question number 5 as we wait for some more Twitter questions to come in. Question 5 is, what can help ensure success in coopetition?
I think it helps to have clear rules on where to compete on and where to cooperate. For instance, when we organize the Me Magento event in the Netherlands, we get a lot of competitors together in a room and to tell potential clients what they're working on and how they could help them. But on that day, that single day, they agree on a program, no commercial sessions, all about sharing knowledge, no plugging a product, and rules like only 2 employees at a stand. Everyone has the same exact stand layout, and then we do different rounds, so we have same time for every customer to talk to a company, and obviously we don't say crap about each other on the day. But after that day, it's fair game.
And I think part of it, you have to check the egos at the door, right? I mean, when it comes down to it, you focus on whatever the purpose of that thing is that you're collaborating on. That's the focus. It's not plugging your brand or outlining where you're better than someone else. If you align with that person and you all focus on that purpose, once that purpose is solved, I think you can jump off and do something else. I think where the problems come in is when it's not equal. Either one person's doing all of the work, or not everyone kind of believes in that purpose and they're trying to leverage it for something else.
Everyone is nodding, so I guess yes.
Yeah, this sounds like an obvious one too, but knowing what the goals are of if it might be a shared goal or you might have separate goals, but knowing what the other company or person wants out of it so that you can help each other achieve those is really important.
And then once you do, is maintaining very constant and clear communication, because a lot of times, especially if you're competition, things can get crossed. So just like keeping an ongoing conversation and making sure that everyone's clear about the original goals and things that you set out.
Yeah, especially since Dom's not here, I'll drop the buzzword of transparency, right? I mean, I think the idea of transparency when you're collaborating is, open communication and that transparency. And like you said, Tia, I think that's when you don't have to worry about egos or someone going outside the line. And I think that's hard. I think that's the hardest part. I think I saw a question coming through on Twitter about, how do you get C-suite buy-in or how do you get others to kind of really understand this idea of, I had a fight. I worked for the Department of Defense for a while. They refused to allow me to retweet or reshare anyone whose content who wasn't in the Department of Defense or government. And I had to fight to say, why do I want to promote corporate America? And I seriously heard that in boardrooms. And it was the fact that they are so egotistical and they so don't understand or get it. They think they're on a completely different platform. I think part of it is you just have to switch the ball around and say, who do you listen to? Who do you read? And their first answer is Richard Branson and Mark Cuban. And I'm like, neither one of them are in the government or Department of Defense, and you're reading their stuff. Part of it's relating with that senior leadership to say, flip it around and put it in their court and say, if you're willing to, go to Pizza Hut, and although you're the high and mighty that drives a BMW, you can still promote other people and other things that are outside your comfort zone.
I think me and Haley are really lucky to be working in the company that we do, because basically we've been talking about all of the values that our company has today, like humility, generosity, transparency. I'll take a picture after share it on Twitter so you guys can see like literally all this stuff.
It's on our Instagram.
It's on our Instagram.
Well, I think that's exciting. That's why companies are, like yours are embracing things like this and empowering you guys who have great personal brands and great relationships with the community to do what you're doing. I think Buffer comes to mind. Buffer sent out their values, and I have their sticker on my laptop of what their values are, and because they're very proud of what they're trying to build and what they're trying to make happen, and part of that is because they're not afraid, or I think they're on the extreme because they're more transparent than anyone else could possibly be. But companies like like yourselves and like B2C, where B2C live tweets their meetings, which I think is hilarious because it gives me an inside view. I don't work for them, but I relate to Amanda and Brew and those guys that are having these these joking inside joke sessions where I'm like, they're that confident and that outgoing that they're doing these kind of fun things with the community. It makes people care a little bit more, and I want to collaborate. B2C offers to collaborate with me, I'm going to say yes every single time because they're willing to do those things for the community today.
Yeah, Moz is really great with that too. They have their like whiteboard Friday where it's a lot of the time it'll be Rand just kind of hashing out an idea and going through their process, and then they also have the UMoz where people can contribute, like members of the community can contribute their own thoughts. But yeah, just that collaborative aspect is really, really powerful, and they have a great brand from a community management perspective and SEO perspective.
Another key to success I want to bring up is just this thought, like it's one thing if it's just two organizations collaborating, right? But what happens when you have many? And I think something that I've learned is that what doesn't work is that you try to democratize the entire thing and make it like a committee, and you just end up having way too many cooks in the kitchen and you never go anywhere. And so when you're cooperating, even with competitors, when there's a large enough group, you kind of need to elect somebody as the leader. That doesn't mean you still can't argue things out and things like that, but you sort of need one person or one of the organizations who's like driving everything and making sure things get done and things like that. So
yeah, you do need like one project manager for the big campaign overall,
or a purveyor of purpose, right?
Exactly. All right, so let's bring in a couple more tweets here. We're going to start off with Michael Boyce. So, hey, Michael. Michael asks, what strategic alliances can you personally speak to that helped expand a market or improve the quality of a community? So can somebody give us one of their examples they can speak to?
I can give an example of that. So I worked for a data center cloud company, and we worked with the OpenStack community because we were working in OpenStack Cloud, and just aligning, Rackspace was kind of the founders and back end of that OpenStack community. It was a direct competitor of ours in the data center industry, but in the cloud industry, we realized that if we worked together and collaborated, we went to their event. I keynoted at one of their events that they were actually having, where that probably would have never happened previously if we were only talking about the data center space, which we competed on day to day on. But because we were trying to drive new initiatives, drive new standards, we kind of worked together on. I think that was an alliance that was really helps, especially, I think we were talking about the open source community before. Open source is definitely an interesting one because they really rely on collaboration, and no matter what your day-to-day job is, if you're not collaborating, open source struggles.
All right, sorry for forgetting to click the one button, so you guys just got to check out my tweet deck for a little while there. But here is our next question. This comes from Ryan. Ryan says, what are your social measuring tools for finding social partners? He loves BuzzSumo. Has anyone tried Breaker Nation? So let's do some tool talk.
I was going to say, BuzzSumo is always one that comes up. To be honest, it's not really like a tool-based thing for us. It's more of like a one-on-one thing that happens, I think, just from personal experience and identifying people who we want to use. It's very manual on our end, I think, unless, Haley, you can think of anything that we use particularly.
No, it's kind of, yeah, it is more of like a manual just through the social listening, through the moderation. We use a series of tools from Hootsuite to Buffer to Sprout Social, but yeah, it's kind of, we have like a database of influencers, and just through I guess knowing who we're talking to and who our own connections are. Yeah, I don't have like a clear-cut answer for that, unfortunately, but
I've been trying out BuzzStream for managing the contact base that I'm building, but for it to actually identify them, it's definitely more like, oh, we really want to work on this with this person because we saw them write this blog, or they have an awesome product that would go really well in this toolkit that we're building. So we really do it like backwards.
Yeah, it's always been pretty manual for me as well. The only exception would be like sometimes when we're pulling in a lot of contacts into Nimble, we'll search for specific keywords to show up, just so that we know, like, hey, we're watching for people specifically that have this in their bio or whatnot, and that'll help a little bit, but otherwise it's always been pretty manual.
I'll drop a quick plug. So I have a new show coming out next week called iSocial Tools, and so I've been actually reviewing and demoing a bunch of tools in this area. BuzzSumo, one of my favorite, but Spider from the Media Labs one is a great tool. That Spider Cube is what it's called. Another one, Tracker, which is a much higher price tag. It's more enterprise focused, but Tracker is a great one for kind of influence. And I love BuzzSumo because you can attach content, people, and buzzwords all to one and really cross-section a social listening. And then another one that is Twitterland. I know they spelled a little different than just Twitterland, but Twitterland is a great one because it does monitoring, influence, and reporting, and you can do it on certain people, certain industries, or certain topics rather than, I will not get into the clout discussion today, but, I like these tools that are going above and beyond and thinking about influence when it comes to content and hashtags and engagement with your community, not just some, random score that's put together that none of us know how it comes together.
Yeah. The only thing that I found sometimes with those is I'll go in expecting too much, I think, and then I'll put in all these words, and then they'll show me all these people and be like, oh, I already knew all them already. So it's really like getting close. You kind of got to scroll down farther down the list, I guess, to get to those people.
Yeah, and that's one of the nice things about the tool Spider Cube is it actually allows you to take your list and take all of your stuff, and it aggregates it over time. So it'll actually adjust those lists, because I'm the same way, and you can actually start to hide the ones you already know, and then as you hide, or you can even eliminate and say, if I already follow or retweet their stuff, don't show it to me. So then you're getting brand new, fresh people as well as fresh links and content to listen to. I mean, we all know it's hard to find new hashtags, new events, new things. But yeah, my iSocial Tools event's been fun because these new tools, figuring out what works. I don't need to know all the features. I just need to know the features that can provide us as in the community some direct value.
I think it's also important to remember that even beyond tools, right, is that you're going to find this. If you want something that's talked about often, or you want to find people or conversations or hashtags that lots of people are talking about, all it takes is to just go look for it. Especially when you think about Twitter, right? I went through an exercise the other day. There was a small community that we were looking to find some influencers in. All I did was type the name of that city in Twitter, and over on the left-hand side, you can see every person who has that city in their bio. You can quickly search to see who, and Twitter ranks them by popularity, I believe. And you can see who's talking about that city. And so just by doing some clicking and some reading and interpreting, I think often you can come to a lot of those solutions yourself, just as quick as a big tool, sometimes even better. That's just my take.
Yeah, I found like a lot of times I waste more time trying to find a tool than if I just did it manually, to be honest.
I agree. I end up looking for a lot of tools, but then kind of like Frankensteining my process with whatever like each one gives me, and it works for me, but I have yet to find like the one that does absolutely everything that I need, and I don't know if that exists.
And that's what Brian's gonna do for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, especially because I don't believe in the idea of one tool being the easiest.
Yeah, I was gonna say Brian
Exactly,
uses
yeah.
like 500 tools, so he's not gonna find like that one tool.
My whole goal of this, and really is because it came up in like when someone asks me what tool I use, I usually give 6 examples because
Yeah.
I don't believe, you know, like part of my reason that I fought with Salesforce for a while is Salesforce kept telling me they could do everything for me, and I had Nimble and I was doing all these other things, and so like I love HubSpot, but I love HubSpot for a certain thing that it does, where I also love Infusionsoft for, you know, so my goal of this idea is that I've sat through every single demo you can imagine, especially recently, and I'm going to kind of provide that input and that value, hopefully on some YouTube videos that'll provide value. And I love suggestions, so if you have a tool or one that you would love for me to kind of highlight, let me know. I'm kind of doing this out on my own. It's something that it's a passion of mine, so very cool.
I will subscribe.
Yes.
Hey, one quick thing I just wanted to share while it's top of mind, because it was an aha for me the other day, is, you know, just about every city has its own trends map or trends Twitter account, so that it tweets out like whatever is trending in that city on Twitter. Boy, that's a great way to find if of the influencers in that town of who people are talking about. Because especially with small towns, the popular people, when they're at networking events and everyone's tweeting with them or tweeting, hey, I'm here with you know, at so and so, they'll actually trend in their cities, and so you're able to find them as well. So, all right, question number 6. Thanks, Jerry. We got 3 minutes left, so we're gonna have to really breeze fast through this. And the last question is, what can go wrong with coopetition? So we'll have to keep this a little short, but let's hear about some disasters.
Basically, the biggest thing that usually goes wrong is the other person doesn't hold up, other person, other company, other part of the co-op, what would you call it? Co-op partnership? Doesn't hold up their end of the deal. So you do all the work, you do what you say you're going to do, and then they don't come through in the end.
So they're like your typical lab partner in school, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Project partners. Yeah.
You always learn the hard way, really, who is going to be a good partner and who isn't, I feel like.
All right.
Totally. Or I guess, I mean, if they misrepresent, if you're in a partnership with them and then they misrepresent your brand or your company or your message, then that can get pretty dicey. And I guess that just goes back to making sure that they have all of the copy and assets and message that they need before you enter into a partnership with them, so they know what your points are.
Yeah, especially if you lose, you know, the trust is the big piece. So if one side of the partnership screws the other side, you lose the trust there between the two of them. But I mean, I think that's where you get burned. You have to trust the partner enough so that they're not going to burn you. But in today's world, they burn you once. The ramifications of that are so high in most cases that you hopefully they value that enough to make it happen.
When you're trying to start a competition, you'll see that the market leader won't join because they're too big and they're not interested, not enough value for them in it to join a competition because they're already the biggest, right? So that's something that maybe not wrong, but that's something to think about.
Awesome. Well, that's a great thought to kind of end our Friday. Sherry, what's going on next week?
Next week, we're talking about user-generated campaigns with the crew from Zoom. So, and whoever else wants to join.
Yeah, that sounds exciting. So, user-generated campaigns and content, is that?
Yep.
All right, that sounds awesome. And then also, can you just give a plug for CMAD since that's coming up?
Yeah, so Community Manager Appreciation Day is coming up January 26th, 2015. And if you want to be a part of that, whether it's sharing your story or be considered as a panelist or whatever, just head over to cmad.co/participate and submit your information.
And are we looking this year for people to tell their story of how they became a community manager again?
Yep, yeah, we're still doing that. So we have 3 queued up for sure to go out soon, and there's a bunch more coming through. And then we also still have some sponsorship opportunities this year as well.
So for you guys on this panel, and then definitely everybody else watching, I'd really highly encourage you, just share your story of how you began, because it really helps inspire all of us, both old and new, and definitely people just becoming or looking to get it into the field of community management. Yeah, so I'm excited to read everybody's stories. So, all right, and we'll see you guys next Friday. Until then, see you later. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.